Connection started when my daughter was about 8, and she came forward. She was playing competitive basketball at the time. Sounds funny, but it was a big thing back then. She played for a team called Huron Lakers in Sarnia, and she started out with an anxiety. Like she would have freeze attacks on the court and she couldn't move and hyperventilating and things like that. So that's where that all started. Eventually, it evolved into depression, eating disorder, and then she took her life in August 2016.
Was on a motorcycle trip with my wife. We were a little bit lost. We had all the time in the day. We were arriving in our destination a little bit early. Gonna arrive a little bit early, so we decided we would take a detour. So with that detour, got a little bit sidetracked, turned around a bit. So we just pulled over on the side of a U.S. county road. Parked on the side of the road. We were working on like Heather was riding her own bike, so we were up at my bike, working things out on our GPS to, pick up this little town that she wanted to go through before we ended up down in Nashville for the night. And had it all worked out. I was sitting on my bike. She walked back to her bike to get on, and next thing I know, we got hit from behind. So, yeah, that was kind of it. She was killed, and yeah, that's it. Well, I was had significant injuries as a result, broken back, and concussion, all that sort of stuff. So, broken ribs. Had buddies come down, pick me up. We drove back to Canada. Uh, I've had difficulty going back to work as a result of the accident, and as a result of the accident and other stuff that I've had to deal with through my career, I've been diagnosed with PTSD. So, yeah, as you can see, this is the result. PTSD, it manifests itself in several different ways, really depending on the person, right? So, in my particular case, I get angry really quickly. But then I recover really quickly too, and it's a weird sort of sense of feeling, in the sense that you're angry, you're saying what you're saying if you're calling somebody on their or whatever, but it's that getting that out is the release, and once it's out, it's gone, and you recover very quickly, or I do anyway, and I carry on, right? PTSD is a cumulative thing, and how my doctor kind of coined it is, think of it as a silo, and all the different incidents that you've dealt with through your professional career pile up in layers. And in a normal grain silo, grain's taken out the bottom, so it keeps going. But with PTSD, it just piles up until you could have a minor incident and it explodes. And now it's in there, PTSD is in. Once you have PTSD, you've got it. You're not going to recover from it. This doesn't heal. You become a different person. And you have to figure out how to manage that. That's the work. It's the managing part.
So I was working, I was a petroleum mechanic, so I built fueling systems. And I was in Ottawa, and I was decommissioning some tanks, some fuel tanks. They were like 50,000 liter fuel tanks. One of the laborers started cutting a tank, and I was a supervisor on site, and I didn't want anything to happen, or because I'd be held liable. So I took over, and so I had to cut a hole 18 inches by 18 inches by 18 inches, and I made it 17 more. And then over the sound of the saw, I could hear the tank sucking in air, and then it blew up. So it was more of it was just like a big 50,000 liter flamethrower. It chucked me back probably 20, 30 feet. And yeah, I sat there for a minute, and because the type of person I am, I never want anybody to worry. So I got up and I started going like that, telling everybody with a big smile on my face at the time, saying, "Holy boys, I think I got burned." So then when I seen the look on their faces is when I started to panic. Kind of walked past a window and looked over and see my face was blistered and bubbled, and then I looked down and I had no top on or anything because it was melted, and I could see that I was badly burned. I'm in year 3 now since my accident, and for the first 2 years I couldn't function like a normal human. I always thought I was gonna die, or and these aren't just like I think I'm gonna die. Like I absolutely would think at certain times that I was gonna die or I was gonna be in an explosion. I was super hyper vigilant. I couldn't go anywhere with my kids. I missed Christmases. I missed birthdays. I couldn't be around people. I did a stay at Homewood Healthcare facility. I did 56 days there, and it's a PTSD recovery program. They just teach you how to different coping mechanisms. They teach you that it's kind of normal to feel the way you're feeling, because I totally had no idea that was. I thought that I was crazy. I thought like that it was going to be like that forever. And yeah, they just it's going much better now. Like if I'm starting to panic or anything, I know what tools to do or what to do to get out of scary situations or triggers. So yeah, it affects everyday life. It's my kids were the main thing that helped me to seek help, because they started to not want to be around me. Like they panic every time I started to show any signs of frustration. So yeah, it really it was kind of devastating. I was ready to walk in front of a bus, man. I thought it was going to be like that forever.
It was fairly consuming in the beginning. There was a lot of appointments, and as you can imagine, there was suicide attempts. We lived kind of day to day, moment to moment, in a panic, maybe, I guess you could say. I don't know. I guess I was more filled with anxiety myself, and I could feel what she felt, I guess, in that sense, where you just don't know how you are going to manage day to day. Since then, I am more relaxed. I think I have a little bit more of a regular schedule now. It took a long time to get to that point. It's not easy transitioning into a life where you don't have that person in it anymore. So it's taking time. It's getting there, but there's a lot of, I don't know, still sad and depressing types of days I go through.
More nights than one, I wake up screaming in a sweat, trying to run from the pain of the past. But I'm trapped. The door to leave keeps slipping out of reach, no matter how fast I try to run and catch it. My legs burn, and my scratched arms scream while I try to wake myself up from the never-ending nightmare. Blur of a dark room, a couch, and a body pressed into mine will forever be etched into my mind. The TV softly speaks over the roar of the pain in my ears. Escape might never happen, so I numb myself to it. I just lay there paralyzed, trying to find ways to blame myself for everything that is going wrong, although he tells me it's my fault enough. Raised voices cloud my vision in my search for an escape. Eventually, I found relief, though. I was able to run far away from the physical pain. No one told me that the pain would follow for years after. So as I still run through the nightmare that never ceases, I survive. I breathe another breath, and taking one step at a time, I slowly grow closer to the door to escape. The doorknob might always be just out of reach, but for today, I feel one step closer than before.
I personally struggle with anxiety, depression, and an eating disorder. And I have also dealt with grief and suicide within my community. It's kind of put my life on hold for a couple years now. In my last year of high school, I had to leave and I was hospitalized for the first time. I was in child and adolescent at the time, and I didn't have a choice whether I wanted to be in the hospital or not, which made it difficult. I missed out on a lot of things, and I became very isolated, so I didn't really see what was in the real world anymore. When I was in child and adolescent inpatient, there were two other girls from Sarnia, which were Randy Babcock and Steph Shaw. And the three of us couldn't believe how many child and adolescent patients came in and out of those doors that were from Lambton County, even though we were in a London hospital. And we decided that if somebody else didn't speak up, who would? And so we decided to do a news article. And that kind of started the whole advocacy piece of creating conversation around mental illness, especially eating disorders, because we all struggle with eating disorders. It was Christmas time, and I kept seeing everything that reminded me of Steph, and I came home one day and I broke down because I felt like I had lost my connection with her, and I didn't know how to give to her when she wasn't around. So my parents said, well, why don't you do something in honor of her? And we kind of just left it there. And that night I came up with the idea of Steph's self-care packages, because she always reminded me that I needed to take care of myself before I could take care of others, because I have a habit of caring for others before caring for myself. So I started creating these packages with my own money. And at the time, Randy and I were doing another project with a Lambton College student. And so she came over to take some photos one day, and she saw the boxes in my room and asked what it was about. So I told her, oh, I'm making these self-care packages. Don't really know where it's gonna go or anything. And then she's like, well, have you heard of the Awesome Foundation? And at that time, I had no clue what she was talking about. So I Googled it, and 10 times a year they give out $1,000 grants within the community. And Sarnia happened to have an Awesome Foundation. So I applied, and like 3 days later, I got an email saying that I was in the top 3, and I had to go do a presentation. And I was like freaking out because like I did not expect that. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I have to go and talk to people. Like social anxiety is not good with that. So I went and I presented my self-care packages, and I was granted the $1,000. I've been so fortunate to have had the opportunities of getting help in various treatment centers, but not everybody is able to do that. And I kept seeing suicide awareness posts and suicide awareness this, suicide awareness that, and suicide's not an option, but nobody was giving any other options. And it was really frustrating me because I was like, the only thing we're seeing is suicide, suicide, suicide. And like that just reinforces those thoughts in your mind. So I was like, okay, it's not suicide awareness that we need to have more of because we're all aware of it. It's suicide prevention. And so I thought, okay, what other options and what do we need to put in place in order to prevent this tragedy? And it came back to mental illness and coping strategies. And I realized that that's what the community was really lacking, was coping strategies, because with lack of resources, people just don't learn how to cope. And so it makes those thoughts increase of suicide being the only option, and it's not.
I am a mental health nurse. I work on dual diagnosis up at the hospital, as well as Nemesis, which is Nipissing Mental Health Housing and Support Services. It's a group home supporting people with severe mental health, so a lot of schizophrenia, bipolar, schizoaffective, things like that. And I've always had a deep connection with mental health. I've had my own struggles in the past, and I feel like it's I don't want to say it's a way of kind of coping with my own things, but it's a perspective that I feel helps me in my field. I would love to see the education piece really expand. I feel like we're lacking a lot in the teachings of what it looks like and what it is. We can look at a cast and say, hey, your arm's broken, or you've got a crutches, so like you hurt your leg. But when it comes to mental health, people don't look at you and see like this blunt affect on your face, or see like how sad you are and defeated you are, and they just assume, oh, you're just sad, like smarten up, get happy, you know? Like it's not that easy. We have a crutch for our physical body, but we don't really see a crutch for our mental state. And I really think the education piece should be really taught in public schools. I think it's huge. Start young, talk about what depression is, what anxiety is, talk about schizophrenia, talk about these things. Because the more you talk about it, the more normalized it gets. Then when you see someone who's on the streets and they're having a break from reality and they're hallucinating or having delusions, it's not, oh, the person's crazy, let's walk away. It's no, let's approach them and how can we help? Like, what do you need? So I really think that comfort level needs to change, and the best way to do that is to start young and just have it a normal conversation. We brought sex ed forward and talked about it, and it was becoming more normalized, and gender and sexuality. I feel mental health should be right up there. We need to have it more forefront. It's no longer something to be hidden and to be ashamed about. It's something we should talk about and be, I don't want to say proud of, but like have a community that we can support each other with and not be ashamed of who we are. Talk, the best thing, like if it's talking through a journal, through singing, through acting, through some form of expression, like speak to whatever like your heart and soul needs to, because when you hold it in, I found that's when it got to a point where I couldn't even deal with it anymore. And that's when the expression came out. And once you start talking, it's like just word it comes out, and you keep on talking, and then it's like a weight coming off. Don't be scared to cry. Crying, I will admit, is probably one of the most relieving feelings I've ever had. It releases so much, and I feel a lot better after I have a good crying session. So it's just, don't be ashamed of who you are, don't hide who it is, just really be who you are, love who you are, and if you need help, don't be scared to reach out, because people will be there to pick you up.
It's real. And even if you can't see it, it's there. And if somebody's telling you that something's wrong, you need to check it. Like, really check it. And don't take anybody's response. Like your doctor, for example, when they say, oh, we'll just try this or try that, and nothing seems to be working, keep going with it, because it's very important. Like, if you trust your professional, that's great, but always keep looking for more solutions, because for me, I put too much trust, I think, in the professionals, and didn't maybe, I don't know, ask the right questions or maybe find new solutions, and that's hard to take down the road. I remember the one time she went to the hospital. It was the time before the last time. And she had this nurse in Emerge. And she said, you're taking those pills? That's not gonna, because I think it was Advil or Tylenol, or I don't know what it was. Like, all these things are a cry for help, right? But she's saying, but you have to know stuff, because, well, she was a competitive athlete, like super competitive. And you tell her she can't do something, she's gonna do something. And this nurse, didn't know stuff from a hole in the ground. She said to her, well, if that's what you're trying to do, you're only going to ruin your insides. You're going to have this wrong and that wrong and blah, blah, blah. And she kept going down this list of all these things that were going to be wrong inside. Not that there wasn't already something wrong inside. But then it just seemed like, oh, okay, so I got to find a way that's really going to work. And to me, that might have maybe just set that whole thing in motion where, if she's going to try again, she's going to make sure that it works.
I think the depression part I dealt with over many years, but the anxiety takes over way worse than depression in my eyes for myself, because it's like a paralyzing thing that you don't have control over. Like in the morning, you wake up and you're like, life's good, you have a good job, you have family support and all those things, but then you just can't get yourself out of bed ready and out the door. But then once you're out the door and you're at work, you feel good and you feel better and things fall into place. But some people just think, you should suck it up, or they just don't realize how debilitating it is. I think the biggest thing that we're running into finally is that it's getting out there, because it wasn't out there for so many years. Like, I probably had anxiety when I was younger and nobody knew. And you can always hear it in my voice a lot of times. And then just knowing you're not alone. Like, a lot of people are afraid to go for counseling. I've done a lot of counseling, but then recently I've done group therapy, and I found that even like the best I probably have had, just because I realized you're not alone. There's other people that are suffering different things or worse than you, and so that helps.
Well, I know it's getting better because people are talking. There's still the stigma, because there's still those people out there that aren't recognizing it as an actual illness. And it's a hard barrier to break down. But we're working on that. And it takes more than just me or the girl down the road or the guy in the next city. It's an effort for communities and like provinces, and you have to get everybody on board. You have to get all the doctors on board. You have to get the hospitals on board. You have to get the psychologists on board. Like, everybody needs to know about that. You can't just fix it by saying, relax, take it easy, whatever, because that's not going to work. People need treatment, and each person needs individual treatment. You can't manage a mental illness the same for everybody, which seems to be something I found. They were all, oh, well, this is the model that we do for this, or this is the model we do for that, and that doesn't work. So I think until we get all those people on board and realizing that it is a real situation, a real illness, not just something somebody's imagined in their head, then maybe we'll make some progress. Don't give up, because there is help. And if you keep looking, you're going to find what you need. Just don't give up.
You might be thinking to yourself, why am I here? Why do I think things will get better? I know it may seem hard and everything seems to be against you. I know. I know some days are harder than others. Some days you just don't want to get out of bed. Some days you just don't see your life any different than what it is. But I have something different to say. Today, you got out of bed. Today, you're doing your best to live your life the way you want to live it. Your mind might be the greatest adversary you will ever face. It may be your downfall in the short period of time in this world. But you can't let that make your time here any less powerful or amazing than it should be. There's so much potential in life. You may feel as if the whole world is against you. You may feel that you have no one to turn to. I know, because I've had these feelings too. I still deal with these thoughts. You are so much stronger than anyone can ever tell you. You are a superhero. You are loved. You are someone. You mean the world to more people than you know. But in the end, all of this may only be words. This may only be me talking to a microphone. It may sound like the same old thing anyone has ever told you. But all I know is, we are not alone.